So how's things? It's been a few weeks. Huh? So how's things?
Yeah,
You've been busy? You've been away, right?
yeah. I've been both busy and away at the same time.
You're supposed to
Yeah,
relax on holiday, do you know that?
yeah, right. I did actually. I did. We went away for about a week and we got to disconnect and be off the grid for pretty much the entire time,
I'm jealous.
except for a couple of times where we had to drive to somewhere where we could get signal because we needed to put out a couple of fires. But other than that, we were off the grid for about a week.
The thing is, going off the grid actually comes with its own form of anxiety, right? Because you're worried about what you're missing in terms of like, any problems with servers or just anything. Yeah, you're kind of like, when you see that sudden bars come back, you're like, oh my God, the notifications are just going to come.
Yeah.
So,
Just a stream of them.
yeah. To get
Yeah.
to a point where actually not getting notifications doesn't create anxiety would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
One day.
Totally. No, but it was nice to be away for a while. We went camping in the woods up in the mountains near
Nice.
Santa Cruz, California. It's a redwood forest.
Nice.
Really nice.
Very nice. Yeah.
Found a really nice campground, and we did have access to restrooms and shower, but
Yeah. That's the
um,
best kind of campground, right? Because you're away, but you still have
yeah,
running water, right?
yeah, exactly. And it was quite a bit of a walk to get to the
Yeah, yeah.
restrooms, but
At least
still,
they were
it
there.
was, yeah, exactly. They were there. It was nice to have that option.
Awesome. Very nice.
So,
Sounds fantastic. You had good weather as well.
oh yeah, it was nice. It's nice and warm, but at night it would cool down a little bit, so it would get really nice and
Perfect.
comfortable. Yeah, yeah,
Very nice. Very nice.
yeah. So,
We haven't had quite so comfortable weather here. We've had a lot of rain, shall we say? It's been something else. Yeah, we for like 4 or 5 days straight, it was like constant, just and not a drizzle either, like proper, proper rain. So there's a town about 50 kilometers from here, not far, and they had one and over a meter, so that's like three and a half, over 3.5 feet of rain in 3 days. And in the last 5 days, they've had a third of their usual annual rainfall in 5 days. So there's been like floods and landslides and everything. We're okay here because, we're concrete. But yeah, up in the mountains and the villages or towns around here have just been like, oh, it's nasty.
yeah, that's
So,
always a danger,
mm,
right? In the countryside with hills and
mm,
mountains and getting those landslides when you have a lot of
yeah,
rain
right,
coming
right.
down all at once. Yeah.
Exactly. It's kind of, although they. I remember when I first moved here. That happened. I think the year we first moved, I was like, "Huh, that's pretty bad." Then it happened the year after, and it happened the year after. It's basically happened every single year, and it's supposed to be like a once in a 50-year thing that this kind of rain and landslides happen. It's like, no, it happens every year now. That's the way it is now. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's a lot of things going to have to change, but it's kind of scary.
Yeah, yeah. Climate change is real.
Oh
So,
yeah, and things well, it's not going to stop either. I mean, here the forecast here is for the next like you look on Apple Weather, it's like continuous rain for the next until the whole screen is rain. So it's like 100% chance every day, and it's like yeah,
mm,
it's not going to stop anytime soon. This isn't rainy season. This is just summer now.
yeah, yeah.
So yick, not good. Hmm. So yeah, you haven't really done a lot to Fusion Cast then if you've been up in the mountains.
Yeah. Yeah, both fortunately and unfortunately, right?
You need it. You
Um,
need that break.
yeah, yeah, it was
Especially
nice.
since you're starting a new job and you're got to get kind of back into gear for that. It's nice to have a bit of separation and clear your head a little bit before that, right? As well.
Yep, yep. Starting next Monday, so
Excellent.
yeah, gearing
But you
up
said
for
it's
that.
fully remote, right? So you go
Hmm.
from your desk to the same place, just different set
Yeah,
of co-workers, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Fully remote. So,
Changing jobs remote is kind of weird. Yeah, because you're like, I'm still here.
yeah,
It's just a different Slack channel.
right.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
That's nice chance to get to know some new folks and things. The
Yep.
role's actually different as well, right?
It's more development heavy, more,
Right.
engineering side of things, more so that than design or anything like
Cool.
that. I think they kind of like that I have some design background.
Mm.
I just know enough to be dangerous when it comes to design, but
you
um,
you've got some talent there.
yeah, but thanks. but primarily the role is as a developer. Mm-hmm.
I was pleasantly surprised this week. So, I've been kind of a little paranoid about my design skills, or rather, lack of design skills. And I tweeted something earlier in the week, just kind of a mini update. It was nudged by a friend here, and it's like, you haven't posted anything for ages. And you kind of get into this where, because you're doing it, you assume people know about it, right? And sometimes it forces, somebody else kind of going, you're not actually talking about it. It's all going on in your head on your laptop, but you're not actually talking about it. So just that small nudge was like, oh yeah, I should probably post something. So I posted just a few screenshots of like the redesigned new check-in page. Mm-hmm. And like there's a modal for like, the welcome modal or something. So I posted those. And somebody who I did some work for, a really long time ago, like 9 or 10 years ago. So he's built a number of companies. He's kind of a smart guy. He's CEO of founded like an online bank in the UK. And so he posted like for a new product that, your app looks incredibly elegant and really nice design. I'm like,
oh, nice.
Seriously? I can't tell anymore. And so my friend followed up with like, no, really, it is. It looks great. And I'm like, that means a lot to me, because I am really self-conscious of the design, just because I don't have any confidence in whether it's a good design or not. It's like, well, I think it looks not too untidy and it looks kind of okay to my eye, but I've got it's very difficult for me to actually have an understanding whether that's good or not. So just to get somebody who I don't have any regular contact with, we don't really talk or anything apart from, a long time ago, for him to say something like that was like, oh, okay, maybe it's all right after all. Maybe it's not so bad.
That's awesome. Nice. Well, no, it does look great. I haven't seen the latest redesign you've done, but from using it before, it's really nice and clean, and it has this, what I like about it is that it has this nice combination of modern but old school at the same time, with just simplicity, very.
Yes, a few people have said this to me before, that it kind of feels a slightly retro, and I'm like, that's okay.
Yeah,
I don't mind.
I'm pretty sure that's intentional.
It is
just keeping it simple.
Right. I mean, it's partly just my aesthetic preferences as well. I kind of like older style web applications, and that style of just simplicity and like does what it says, right? So that, but with a slightly, obviously Tailwind UI has been an absolute godsend for me, just because it's given me a good set of like foundation of like stepping stones to build upon. And I think I mentioned before, reading Adam's Refactoring UI, is it his book? I'm sure I've mentioned before, but like I read through that a number of times of just like kind of dipping in. When you dip into something and you don't actually think that you've read it all, you're kind of like, oh yeah, I kind of skimmed that. I read a few pages. And in your mind, it's like, no, I really should go back and read that. And then when you do, you realize you've actually probably read it all, just in different segments.
Yeah.
And it struck me that when I did go back and look at it, I was actually using the techniques that he covers without actually realizing it. Mm-hmm. I've somewhat absorbed them, and I think it's helped my design skills a lot, even though I've still got a long way to go in a style sense. But I think a lot of the things he talks about, I seem to have taken on board subconsciously and seem to be using those, so hopefully that's helped as well. So yeah. It's a really good resource, that book, and just Tailwind UI in general, just because there's some very good useful patterns in there that you can build upon. So yeah, I like it. Saved my life, that's for sure.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to. I've seen Tailwind UI, just the website and the sample components that they have there, but I haven't used the product itself, and I haven't bought the book either. But
recommend it.
but I am using Tailwind CSS, so it's awesome. I love it.
I think there's this danger of us falling into like what Bootstrap was in the early 2000s, well, mid 2000s maybe. I can't remember when Bootstrap first kind of started, and it was the first reusable and drop in and looks good framework.
Yeah,
there was this danger of suddenly everything looked like Bootstrap, right?
Yeah.
Overnight,
could,
every website was Bootstrap.
yeah, you could see it from a mile away, every website. Oh yeah, it's Bootstrap.
It's Bootstrap. So there's a slight danger. I mean, when you start using Tailwind UI, you see this all the time. You say, "Oh,
Yeah,
Tailwind UI." It's the
yeah.
same backgrounds, the same site, color,
Same aesthetics, yeah.
same aesthetic. Yeah. So there's a slight danger of that, but it doesn't seem to have kind of annihilated everything else like Bootstrap did. It's not taken over in the same way, but there's definitely easy to spot. But as I say, there's a lot of components that are a lot of styles that I'm using that are completely my own, but I started with a Tailwind. Maybe that was what it was first on the page, and it's been completely rewritten and moved around a bit, but it's stuck with that general layout and the systems that it's using, and it's just a really good foundation for someone like me who doesn't have any design background to draw upon. So it's highly recommended from me.
Yeah,
it's well worth it. What is it, $180 or something? It's paid for its. I think it paid for itself in the first hour when I used it. Highly recommended.
Yeah. I'll get to it at some point.
Well, it's probably less necessary for you because you obviously based on FusionCast and your landing pages and everything. Yeah, you don't need it so much as. But the book is there's probably even some stuff you get from his book which is just like, oh yeah, that's why I do this. I think more than anything, that. Explaining, it's not just this looks good, this doesn't. It's like, this is why this is better than this, and just internalizing those things was really helpful for me. So
yeah, because that becomes repeatable once you understand those principles and why we need more spacing, why you need more all the core principles of design, repetition, negative space and all that stuff.
Yeah, a lot of stuff with just de-emphasizing text with using colors instead of like labels and things, just using color schemes and de-emphasizing things with, bolding certain things. And which, I'd just stick a label next to everything and go, where's there? You know what it is, right? And someone says, there's a better way, and this is how you could, okay, I get it.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. That's why a while back I decided to invest a little more time in learning a little bit of these principles because I was really clueless when it came to design.
You didn't have any design background either?
No. Okay. I just started a few years ago. I started paying more attention to that. Okay, why is it that I like this website? What are the characteristics that make it aesthetically pleasing, right? And I started paying more attention to that. And okay, I like the typography, or how much space they've used and how things are lined up in a certain way, and or all these different little characteristics that make a site look nice and look aesthetically pleasing. So and I took some of those free email courses. You get a drip style, read some blog articles, and just over time I kept consuming more of that content and internalizing some of those principles of design, and little by little it just I would like to think that I got a little bit better about that, sure. And I just know enough to be dangerous, like I said.
No, it's great. So I mean, I kind of learned programming the same way, right? Nobody taught me to program. It was like, well, read books and copied other people's code until I knew how to do it, right? So I guess similar thing. It's just I had less of less confidence in design, whereas code was always like this feels like my domain, whereas design, I don't know whether because I guess it's not really gatekeepery or anything, but it feels like I don't have permission to do it well. Like I'm not a designer, so therefore, But I guess it's the same with anything else. If you do it, that's what you do, right?
Yeah.
You don't need someone's permission to be a designer.
You give yourself permission and just go for it. Yeah. Just step outside your comfort zone, and that's how you grow. So yeah, you're right. Same as programming. Much of what I know about coding, I've learned it on my own, reading and looking at other people's code and tinkering with things, trial and error all the time. So it's the same thing with design, I think. And then sometimes I look at some designs from actual designers and they look amazing. I'm like, I can never do something like that. But as long as we know enough to make something user friendly and
I have a folder on my desktop that I generally screenshot anything that stands out in any way to me, like, oh, that's good. I'd screenshot and throw it in there, and I There probably is, but I've never looked. I wish there was a tool that I could organize that. I don't want to organize them, but make them more accessible to me as opposed to just a folder that I throw everything into. But one day I'll go back and organize it, right? Like my music library.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I think like anything, when you start paying attention to it, then you automatically start to get a little bit better because you start to question, why does that look good? What's the... So one thing, actually, this is a slight detail, but it's a design tactic I've seen on a few websites now with regarding to onboarding. So I've been, as I said, I did some new modals for like when you arrive at Dotplan for the first time after signing up or accepting an invitation, and a different one when you go to the new check-in page. For the first time. It just explains what the things are. So I probably will change to using one of those little, pop-up things, but they're expensive, and I'll put that off for another day, at least for the moment. So in looking at like onboarding modals and things, I noticed something with signups and also like the onboarding or the sign-up process for some apps that I've seen recently that looks really good and kind of has given me ideas for how I want to do it, which is, there's a multi-step process, like, your name, and then create an organization, which I have this idea, you create your account, and then if it's not an invitation, you have to create a workspace. What's the workspace name? Your workspace is, your grouping, whether it's your company name or whatever. But I've seen 3 or 4 pages now that on that, rather than give you just a white page with a form, they actually put a blurred out somebody else's like demo page of the application behind the modal. So even at the sign up things, creating an account, they'll put like an example page of the application in progress, but then blur it out slightly. And it looks really good, as in like you get an idea for what you're signing up for, not just a white page. You've read the landing page and then you go to sign up and it just gives you a blank page, but it gives you like it feels like you're already inside the application, even though you're just a static sign up page, right?
You're signing up.
So I'm tempted to try and do that at some point when I have a spare afternoon to I'm not busy, not doing anything, but
in your sleep you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna do it in your sleep.
So I think I might have a try with that, just because there is this multi-step process, for signing up, and I think it just looks, it feels nice as as you're signing up. It's like, oh, I'm already in it.
Yeah. Talking about design and onboarding, one of the demos that I did, I was showing the screen that comes up when you log in for the first time into FusionCast, and I've created, if you remember, this little graphic that shows boxes that show
that's right
recordings go into sessions and sessions go into podcasts. And I kind of explained a little bit there. That's the extent of my onboarding at this point.
Right.
Yeah, it's super simple. And when I was explaining that and showing that, the person I was doing the demo for, she's like, "Are you an engineer?" And I'm like, "Yes."
Maybe.
It's just like, okay. Because the way I'm presenting that it's just like, is this how things are structured in the database?
Right. In your mind, well,
pretty
yeah,
much.
it's put into a box.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just like, okay.
Yeah, it's a giveaway, isn't it?
Yeah. And she's a UX designer, so I'm sure she's gonna have a lot of feedback about that, because she was already pointing out the fact that I'm presenting this from an engineer's perspective, and it's not necessarily the most user-friendly thing for someone without a technical background. And so
right. Yeah, you got to be careful. I mean, it's so easy to expose your like database design in your forms and things, just because that's the easiest way to do it, right? And it's like, well, this is one model and this is another, and therefore they're different forms, right? When a lot of the time that the user doesn't care about that differentiation. In fact, it confuses them, so
yeah.
I mean, you have a reasonably clear terminology you're using in terms of like shows and episodes and things, so yeah, maybe there's some other way of visualizing it that is more in line with this is a show and this is an episode, right? So even within like an example podcast player or something, you might be able to show something like that. So, but yeah, boxes are probably a little bit engineering, right?
Yeah.
Giving it away.
Yeah, and the whole mental model of one thing goes inside
another.
inside another. There's got to be a better way. But then
Mhm.
again, I'm not a UX designer. I'm not a designer. But yeah, I try. I do my best.
So one thing I had a couple of. Oh, are you okay for time, by the way? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
one's gonna be a short one. I
Yeah.
guess we'll have to wrap it up in
Okay.
about 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. I'll be
Yeah.
quick. Uh, So I had an interesting mentoring session. I had a couple of mentoring sessions at my co-working space over the
Cool.
past few weeks. Yeah, they asked me to invite it. Say, we've got these Japanese mentors coming in, investors, and their experience in marketing and things. So do you want to? It's in Japanese, so one of us can help you if you speak some Japanese as well. It's kind of handy. So we kind of a combination of me plus one of the staff that I am friends with was helping translate. And so, an interesting one this week. She's got a lot of experience in terms of online marketing for games, like mobile games and things.
Okay.
And so, she was very helpful in looking at it from a Japanese company's perspective, or at least a Japanese SaaS user's perspective. And she's like, okay, now I can't really, you know better than me marketing this to the world, but I can kind of give you some advice or ideas selling it to Japanese staff.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's two, I guess, main things. One being the onboarding is probably even more important here than it is, elsewhere. And I think I've mentioned this before that the non-Japanese users that I've had on the beta and things were happy to play with it and figure it out on their own and almost want to figure out their own way of using it. Whereas Japanese stuff, and she's like, this is how it is. I'm telling you now, you need to change this, which is basically state how to use it. Not you could do this. No, this is how the application is used. Just be clear and direct. This is what you do. This is why you do it, and this is when you do it. And plus, just the onboarding. A modal is probably not enough. You just need step by step. You need do this here, do this there, and then click this, and then do that. And to go with that, give basically a guidelines, as she called them, i.e. instructions. So for everything that you do, have a question mark next to it, and it opens a help box, which is like, this is this, and this is how you do it, and a step by step for each thing. She's like, you might get startup-y type users might forgive that, and they might understand that and be okay with it. But if you sell to any bigger company, you need that. There's no option. It's kind of, you need a guideline for everything that you do in the application. You need instructions for it. And it's like, okay. I kind of knew this was, we've been asked to do it before for other things I've done here, but for just be like, no, this isn't optional. You need this if you sell to anybody above, a smaller company that is more engineering kind of focused anyway. And it's like, yeah, okay. So we've started it already because we had some of them done for one of the customers we were working with here, but I guess we just need more. But one of the other things she mentioned that made me, this is to do with like the onboarding, the landing page and just the sales side of things, was, one of my plans that sooner rather than later is to have integration with Slack primarily, and then potentially Microsoft Teams, just because that's big, both in terms of reminders and also digests for at the end of the day after other people have checked in, kind of pop up a digest, just something to keep it regular and keep making sure people are involved with it, and they can have visibility to what's going on, and you might get a reminder to check in and things like that. And she's like, that's good, but even if you don't have it yet, say you're going to do it right at the top of your page, because the first thing when I see anything an application about team communication or team, even if it's asynchronous or anything, if I see the words team and communication, I think, well, we'll just use Slack. It's just Slack, or it's just Teams. So we don't need another thing. So by stating early on, as soon as possible on the page, that you will be introducing integration with Slack or Teams, it automatically raises the question of, well, if it integrates with Slack, it must be something different. So without stating that, you're kind of leaving open that it might just be another Slack kind of thing. So she said, if I was you, even if it's not ready yet, just say coming soon, Slack integration, and then link and explain what it will do, even if you don't, it's another 3 months away or so.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds like pretty good advice. Sounds good to me.
So just because it's I've had a few people say, oh, but we use Teams, and it's like, yeah, but that doesn't matter. This isn't
Yeah.
this isn't a chat app. It's something different. Well, yeah, but we have Teams. Yeah, but
Yeah. You don't
so
get it.
yeah, but by kind of being clear that yeah, that's good. You use Teams and you can use this with it for these reasons, and this will
Mhm.
help with these things. Then hopefully that will clear that up. So
Mhm.
that's something I'm going to add to my landing page on my current redesigny kind of thing. And one last thing that they both her and the previous mentor mentioned was like, yeah, your current persona of who you're targeting is way too wide. At least at this stage, just pick someone, pick an industry. It doesn't matter. Engineers, pick engineers, and
Mhm.
like sell to them at least at first, just because without that you're and I know this, and I've read this a million times, and this isn't something. It's frustrating because I know this, right? But at the same time, it's really hard to do, just because you think, yeah, but anybody can use this, right? So therefore, I don't need to sell to a person. But without that, they're like, well, who do you want me to introduce you to? And I'm like, anybody. Well, that's not good enough. Tell me which of my teams do you want me to introduce you to? So by having it, even if it's narrowed to something like creatives, even if it's designers or engineers or
Mhm.
someone who's a creative in some way, well, that's
Mhm.
enough. That's better than anybody.
So narrow down your target, still teams, but a specific kind of team, right?
At
In
least
a
first.
specific maybe industry or
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. And then she said, well, obviously that makes it easier then to target communities, right? You can go to a Reddit community, or one of the Slack or Discord channels, and be like,
Mhm.
hey, new tool for designers
Yeah.
or for developers that are doing things. So without that, you're just like, here's a tool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and again, even like saying just remote teams isn't enough anymore, just because that could be anybody. You might, it's not
Yeah.
good enough. So
That makes a lot of sense. And given the fact that I'm assuming, have more developers in your sphere, your networks, right? That makes a lot of sense to target developers, designers, creatives.
I mean, it's what I know, right? So
Yeah.
it'd be really difficult for me to, and I've seen this with other startups I've worked with as well. If you start trying to sell to somebody who you don't have any experience working with, well, how are you building a product for them? How are you going to talk to
Yeah.
them in their language? You can't,
Yeah.
it's unless you have a very close company that you can work with and learn from and build a case study from them. Well, okay, that's fair enough. But if you're just like, I'm going to sell to those people over there, then
Yeah.
so, and it's frustrating because I know this and I should have, done this before, but it's,
Yeah. It's the way it goes. No, that sounds great. I think that's really good advice. That's awesome. So you're going to be working on that, making some of
yes.
those changes.
Well, yeah. I mean, the first initial the things I'm doing right now are I'm adding paddle integration, just because I don't want to leave that any longer. If I sign anybody up, in 2 weeks' time, I want the option for them to pay.
Yeah.
Basically, I've just got to get over that hurdle in terms of it being just, oh, it's an ongoing ever beta, right? No,
Yeah.
I want something where it's like, okay, it's version 0.1 for whatever that is. That's that, and there's a price, and if it's discounted, then that's good. But it's an early version, something that says, okay, now we're launched. I'm desperate to do that, and then once that's working, then yeah, I'm gonna redo landing page and see what I mean. As we've said before, the to-do list of features it's never going to disappear.
Yeah, it's never ending for sure.
And there's nothing broken in the application, and it's useful as it is. So therefore, call it early access and
Yeah,
let people in.
go for it. Go for it for sure.
And
Yeah,
again,
so
this launch, then you can just grow, right?
yeah, yeah. So before we wrap it up, I just wanted to share one quick thing about FusionCast.
Yeah, you
Since
haven't.
I haven't been able to spend that much time working on it, but one thing that I did try was a new approach to recording to try to eliminate that issue that happens every now and then if people close the browser in the middle of recording. And I hit a dead end. So after that, I reevaluated and decided to put that on hold. Because it's going to take a lot longer to figure that out. It's going to take a long time. I want to focus on other areas instead where I can make improvements that are needed based on the feedback that I received. And I know I can make those happen a lot quicker and show some progress and show that the product is improving and evolving. Even if I have this one little thing lingering that I'm not comfortable with, it doesn't seem to be happening a lot. And if I educate users about the proper way of using the product and the proper way of ending a session, it will decrease the number of instances that happens. And also, if that happens, I was thinking that it would be better, since I wouldn't be working on fixing that problem, I would instead, as part of the other improvements, I would give users access to the backup recordings in case they need them, right? So if this thing happens, they have access to the backup recording themselves. And that kind of moves the needle a little bit and keeps the product evolving. And at some point, I'll get around to working on this issue.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think you could tie yourself up in knots for the next few months trying to rework how this works, and it, as you said, for 99% of times it's not an issue, and for that 1%, well, you've got a backup, right? So especially if you, as you say, improve the communication about how you're supposed to do it, then is there any way of forcing a session to effectively finalize, like in the UI, if it's left hanging? Maybe.
Yeah, that's what recovery mode is supposed to do.
Right. But if it doesn't, is there some way of effectively like deleting that and saying, okay, this failed completely, so it's not just left as a spinning like dead session in the UI?
Yeah, no, there's no way to do that right now, and I need to add that.
Right. But that's what I say, like sorting things like that out might just, get rid of the niggly things.
Yeah. So that's what I decided to do. So I'm going to be focusing on these little things.
It's a good idea.
And move the product forward. And hopefully I can get to the point where I integrate billing and start charging,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're right there too. It's an incredibly useful and usable and polished product. So get it launched and then improve.
Yeah.
Same thing is what I'm trying to convince myself to do.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, yeah, you're almost there too. So yeah,
it feels like that's just the beginning, right?
Yeah.
We finally got to the start line. Hey, there we go.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Nice. Cool. So should we wrap it up here?
Sounds like you've got stuff. So yes.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So I'll see you in. Yeah. Always a pleasure. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yep. Good luck. Get your billing set up. That's my plan too. So
yeah. Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Cool, man.
All right.
Take care. Good luck with the job on Monday as well. Hopefully all goes well.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Take care.
Cheers, man.